The first time I held a human weapon in my appendages, I laughed. Actually laughed. A full-throated, mucus-vibrating cackle that echoed through the cramped confines of my stealth vessel. This? I chittered to no one in particular, turning the primitive device over in my grasp. This is what the supposedly dangerous humans use to defend themselves. The object, officially designated as an M4A1 carbine, according to our intelligence archives, was absurdly simple, practically prehistoric. A metal tube that propelled smaller metal tubes using a controlled chemical explosion. No plasma conduits, no antimatter chambers, no quantum targeting arrays, just metal and chemicals. Barbaric. I am Zex the Hor, Chief Scout of the Vrax Imperium's 7th Expansion Fleet. For 3 cycles, I've been observing Earth, cataloging human weaknesses, assessing their military capabilities, and planning our inevitable conquest. My reputation for thorough assessment is unparalleled. 18 subjugated worlds without a single casualty to our forces. And never had I encountered a species so hopelessly outmatched. I activated my neural link and began dictating my final assessment report. Earth Conquest Feasibility Study. Final entry. Humanity remains at primitive development stage Omega-12. Their most advanced weaponry relies on chemical propulsion and digital computing systems, 3 generations behind Vrax's civilian technology. Their military forces are fragmented by primitive tribal affiliations they call nations. Their orbital defenses are non-existent beyond rudimentary satellites that couldn't detect a Vrax scout ship if we painted it neon green and attached strobe lights. I paused, savoring the moment. Every scout waits for an assignment like this, a species so ripe for conquest that the operation becomes less a military endeavor and more a harvesting. Their bodies are fragile, I continued. Soft exteriors with no natural armor, exceedingly vulnerable to temperature variations, require constant hydration and oxygen exchange, slow reproductive cycle, limited sensory capabilities, no natural weapons beyond blunt appendages. In summary, the human species represents the most advantageous conquest opportunity encountered in my service to the Imperium. I sent the report and leaned back in my command chair, gazing through the viewport at the blue-white marble hanging in space. Such a pretty world. A shame the natives were so thoroughly undeserving of it. My neural link pulsed with an incoming transmission. High Command's response. Less than 3 minutes. That had to be a record. Scout Sexthullo. Your assessment is acknowledged and approved. The 7th Expansion Fleet has been authorized to commence Phase 1 operations immediately. Proceed with honor. A tingle ran through my nerve clusters. Immediate approval. My efficiency rating would soar, perhaps even earning a direct commendation from the Supreme Executive. I keyed in the activation sequence, authorizing our hidden array of orbital platforms to power up. 500 stealth satellites, each capable of deploying 50 dropships, had been positioned over Earth's major population centers over the past cycle. Our invasion force would touch down on all continents simultaneously, overwhelming whatever pitiful resistance these humans might muster. Initiating Phase 1, I transmitted to the fleet. Dropship deployment in T-60 segments. As I watched the first platforms illuminate on my tactical display, a strange sensation crawled across my dorsal ridges. A vestigial warning from evolutionary ancestors, perhaps. I dismissed it with a contemptuous flick of my secondary limb. What could possibly go wrong? Captain Jake Miller rubbed his bloodshot eyes, cursing the night shift at NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain Complex. 3 years of staring at screens showing nothing but the normal parade of satellites, space junk, and the occasional astronaut taking a spacewalk. But tonight was different. General Brooks, he said into his headset, we're tracking approximately 500 new objects that just appeared in orbit. They're not on any registry, and they definitely weren't there on the last sweep. The general's gravelly voice came through the speaker. You're telling me 500 unidentified objects just materialized in Earth orbit? That's impossible, Miller. Yes, sir. Normally I'd agree, but Jake's mouth went dry as new data flooded his screen. Sir, the objects are deploying smaller craft, thousands of them. Trajectory analysis shows they're on descent paths to major cities worldwide. A moment of silence. Implement case Thunderhead, the general finally said, his voice eerily calm. Alert all commands. This is not a drill. Jake's fingers flew across his keyboard, initiating the protocol that had been dismissed as paranoid fantasy for decades, humanity's response to first contact, if that contact proved hostile. On his monitor, he watched as dormant defense systems around the world began powering up. Systems the public had never been told about. Systems built in secret by governments who'd taken the possibility of alien invasion more seriously than they'd ever admitted. "They think we're defenseless," Jake whispered to himself as alert confirmations flooded his screen. "They have no idea what they're in for." The first dropships entered Earth's atmosphere precisely on schedule. I watched their fiery descent with professional satisfaction, imagining the terror of the humans below as they witnessed our arrival. Soon the Vrax Imperium would add another world to its domain, and I would add another success to my record. My satisfaction lasted exactly 73 segments. Then the alerts began. Dropship Squadron Alpha reports unexpected resistance. Squadron Delta has lost contact with 12 vessels. Squadron Gamma reports concentrated energy weapons fire from ground installations. What? Energy weapons? That wasn't possible. I had examined every inch of this planet, catalogued every human military installation. They had nothing that could threaten our dropship. Scout Zex the Horror. Incoming transmission from High Command. My ship's AI announced. Before I could respond, the holographic image of Fleet Commander Krasvolan materialized before me, his facial ridges flushed dark purple with rage. "Explain this failure, Scout," he roared. "Your assessment guaranteed minimal resistance." "Commander, there must be some mistake," I stammered. "The humans don't possess. They are shooting our ships out of the sky with directed energy weapons you claimed they did not have." "Explain yourself." Another alert pinged, and another and another. Across my tactical display, red indicators multiplied as dropship after dropship vanished from our sensor grid. "Sir," I managed, my voice thin with disbelief, "I don't understand. This isn't... They shouldn't be capable of..." The commander's image flickered as an explosion rocked my vessel. Warning klaxons blared as my stealth systems failed. "They've detected the command ship," I gasped, frantically attempting to restore our cloaking field. "But that's impossible. Their sensor technology is primitive." Through the viewport, I saw them, a swarm of small craft rising from Earth's surface. Not the clumsy chemical rockets I'd documented, but sleek vessels that moved with impossible agility. "Commander," I whispered as the human craft surrounded my position, "I believe I may have miscalculated." The commander's hologram dissolved in a burst of static as my communications array failed. I was alone facing the consequences of my arrogance. And as the first shot struck my hull, I realized with dawning horror that everything I thought I knew about humans was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. My escape pod slammed into Earth's surface with enough force to shatter 2 of my secondary limbs. Pain receptors screamed, but I silenced them with a neural command. Physical discomfort was the least of my concern. 3 hours earlier, I had been orchestrating what should have been the most efficient planetary conquest in Vrax history. Now, I was a fugitive on enemy soil, my command ship obliterated, my career in ruins, and the invasion force I'd promised would triumph was being systematically destroyed. How? I dragged myself from the smoking wreckage, optical membranes struggling to adjust to the harsh sunlight of this accursed planet. Based on my navigational systems, I'd landed in what humans designated as Wyoming, a sparsely populated region where I might avoid immediate detection. My neural link to the fleet was fragmented but functional enough to provide status updates, each one worse than the last. Orbital Platform 47 through 83 destroyed, 84% of dropship squadrons lost or disabled, ground forces encountering overwhelming resistance, request emergency extraction. I'd never heard fear in a Vrax battle communication before. It was unsettling. A distant rumble drew my attention skyward. Contrails crisscrossed the blue expanse as human fighter craft engaged our remaining dropships. The elegant, deadly dance contradicted everything I'd documented about human aerial combat capabilities. These weren't the clumsy jets I'd observed during my reconnaissance. These were something else. My communicator crackled with a direct message from Fleet Commander Krasvolan. His voice was tight, controlled, the calm of a superior officer who has accepted catastrophic failure and is now focused solely on minimizing losses. "Scout Zexalar, You will rendezvous with surviving ground forces at coordinates being transmitted now. Your objective is to capture intact human technology for analysis. We must understand what we're facing. Commander, I replied. Request permission to execute emergency extraction protocol. Denied, he cut me off. The Imperium requires answers, Scout. You promised an easy conquest. You will deliver understanding of our failure instead. The transmission ended. As darkness fell, I moved cautiously toward the rendezvous point, 20 kilometers east. My evolved night vision revealed a landscape both alien and hauntingly beautiful, rolling plains beneath a star-filled sky. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated this world's aesthetic appeal. Movement ahead. I froze, activating my personal cloaking field, an unnecessary precaution given the humans' supposedly limited visual spectrum. 3 Vrax soldiers emerged from a stand of trees, their combat armor scarred and smoking in places. One was limping, supported by another. Standard military-issue neural suppressors kept their pain at manageable levels, but couldn't mask the terror in their postures. Scout Commander, the lead soldier acknowledged as I revealed myself. We are all that remains of Strike Team Delta. 3 survivors? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Your dropship deployed 50 combat-ready warriors. 47 dead, he confirmed flatly. The humans? They weren't supposed to have plasma weaponry. That's what your intelligence said. My inner membranes fluttered in agitation. Impossible. I observed no evidence. They have it, the soldier snapped, protocol momentarily forgotten in his distress. They have weapons that shouldn't exist on a world at their development stage. And were. Report properly, soldier, I demanded. He straightened, military training reasserting itself. The humans fight differently. Our combat algorithms cannot predict their tactics. They don't retreat when outnumbered. They sacrifice themselves to gain tactical advantages. They continue fighting when wounded beyond reasonable function. It's as if they don't understand they're beaten. A chill spread through my nerve clusters. Did you secure any of their technology? Negative. We were forced to. The soldier's head vaporized in a spray of bioluminescent fluid. His body crumpled as his companions dove for cover. Sniper. I activated my field scanner, another technology the humans supposedly couldn't detect, and located the threat. One human 200 meters away, positioned in a shallow depression with a clear line of sight. Impossibly, his primitive optical targeting system had identified a Vrax soldier in near total darkness. Before I could process this, the night erupted in chaos. Muzzle flashes bloomed across the landscape as more humans emerged from hiding places. My scanners hadn't detected, not random fire, coordinated, precise shots that found their marks despite our advanced camouflage. The remaining Vrax soldiers returned fire, their plasma weapons cutting eerie green swaths through the darkness. One human fell, then another. But there were more, so many more than my scanners had indicated. I watched in frozen horror as my last 2 soldiers were overwhelmed, their superior weaponry and armor proving inadequate against the sheer volume of primitive projectiles. The humans should have been outmatched. Instead, they advanced with a ferocity that defied rational combat behavior. I ran. My 6 limbs carried me swiftly across the rugged terrain, personal cloaking field at maximum power. This wasn't retreat, it was tactical repositioning. I needed to survive, to report what I was witnessing, to understand this impossible resistance. Dawn found me hidden in an abandoned human structure, a barn according to my database. My neural link to the fleet was deteriorating as our communication satellites were systematically destroyed. But I managed to extract a strategic overview. The invasion had collapsed, completely. Every dropship destroyed or captured, ground forces eliminated or in full retreat. Orbital platforms blown out of the sky by weapons the humans had somehow concealed from my extensive surveillance. I had failed utterly. The most humiliating defeat in Vrax military history would bear my name forever. But how? The mystery consumed me as I reviewed my intelligence data, searching for what I'd missed. Human military technology had been thoroughly catalogued. Primitive ballistic weapons, rudimentary explosive devices, simplistic aircraft, nothing that could challenge Varric's superiority. Yet the evidence of my failure lay in the destruction of our fleet. A sound outside, vehicles approaching. I activated my scanners and detected 4 human transport devices, jeeps converging on my position. Military personnel, heavily armed. They had tracked me. Impossible, yet undeniable. I frantically searched for escape routes, but the humans had surrounded the structure with methodical precision. They were coordinating with efficient hand signals, moving with disciplined purpose. Not the chaotic, individualistic behavior I documented in human military exercises. This was something else, something I'd never observed during my reconnaissance. "We know you're in there," a voice called out in flawless Vrax language. "Your cloaking technology is ineffective against our sensors. Surrender and you will not be harmed." They spoke my language. They could see through Vrax's cloaking fields. They had defeated our invasion force. Who were these creatures? With no viable alternatives, I deactivated my cloaking field and emerged, upper limbs raised in the universal gesture of submission. 8 humans trained their weapons on me, crude projectile devices that my intelligence suggested should be no threat to my exoskeleton. After witnessing what had happened to my soldiers, I no longer trusted that assessment. A human male approached, tall by their standards, with facial hair and eyes that reflected an unsettling intelligence. His uniform bore insignia identifying him as Colonel Thomas Wright. "You're the scout, aren't you?" he said, still speaking my language without any translation device I could detect. "The one who told your fleet we'd be easy pickings." "How do you know our language?" I demanded, my academic curiosity momentarily overriding my fear. He smiled, a human expression I'd studied but never fully understood. "We've been monitoring your communications for years. Did you really think those stealth satellites of yours were undetectable?" "Impossible," I stammered. "Your technology is primitive. You use projectile weapons, chemical rockets, digital computing." Colonel Wright's smile widened. "Yes, we do. For everyday use, those technologies are perfectly adequate, efficient, reliable." He gestured to his soldiers. "But we save the good stuff for special occasions, like uninvited guests." My mind reeled. "The technology I observed was exactly what we wanted you to see," he finished for me. "Did you think a species that evolved on a predator-filled world, that survived ice ages and plagues and its own destructive tendencies, would advertise its true capabilities to the stars?" A crushing realization dawned. I hadn't been conducting covert surveillance of an unsuspecting species. I'd been fed a carefully constructed fiction. "The weapons," I whispered. "The plasma weapons." "Oh, we've had those for decades," Wright said dismissively. "Reverse engineered from the last group of would-be conquerors. Or did your Imperium think it was the first to discover Earth?" My neural pathways nearly shut down from the shock. There had been others before us. The implications were staggering. "But why maintain the illusion of primitivity?" I asked, genuinely baffled. "Why not display your true power and deter invasion?" Wright's expression changed, his eyes narrowing. The surrounding soldiers tensed, their weapons steady. "Because," he said softly, "we've learned something important about the universe. Something your kind never understood." He took a step closer, and I instinctively retreated, despite being twice his physical size. "The most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest claws," Wright continued. "It's the one you never see coming. The one that looks helpless right up until the moment it tears your throat out." In that moment, looking into those alien eyes, I finally understood what I had overlooked in all my analysis. Not technology, not weapons. Something more fundamental, more terrifying. I had overlooked the nature of the human species itself. "You're not just warriors," I whispered, the truth crystallizing with horrifying clarity. "You're predators who have been playing prey." Wright nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. "Welcome to Earth, Scout Sexthala. I hope you'll be a quick study. Your Imperium is going to need the warning." The human military facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains was a revelation in itself. Not the crude bunker my intelligence had indicated, but a marvel of engineering that rivaled our finest Varks installations. Smooth corridors lit by soft ambient lighting, doors that opened with thought commands, holographic displays that materialized and dissolved with elegant precision. All technology that, according to my extensive reconnaissance, humans shouldn't possess for at least another century. Colonel Wright led me through security checkpoints, where soldiers regarded me with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. I couldn't blame them. 6 hours ago, my kind had attempted to subjugate their world. "Your soldiers want to kill me," I observed as we entered an elevator that descended with barely perceptible movement. "Some do," Wright acknowledged. "Others just want answers." "As do I replied. "You've hidden your true technological advancement, but why reveal it now? Why not simply destroy our fleet from orbit the moment we arrived?" The Colonel's expression hardened. "Because we needed to understand your capabilities, your tactics, your weaknesses." The elevator slowed, and because some of us thought you deserved a chance to withdraw peacefully. "That was never an option for the Imperium." "We know. That's why most of your invasion force is currently being dissected in laboratories across 6 continents." The elevator doors slid open, revealing a vast circular chamber dominated by a conference table where several humans waited. Military uniforms, scientific attire, and formal diplomatic garb, representatives of humanity's power structures. At the head of the table sat an elderly human male, his face lined with wrinkles that my xenobiology training identified as indicators of advanced age. Despite this physical deterioration, a weakness in Vrax culture, the others deferred to him with obvious respect. "Dr. William Taylor," Wright introduced him, director of the Exospecies Contact Initiative. Taylor studied me with eyes that seemed to penetrate my exoskeleton. "Scout Zextholor, please, sit." A chair had been modified to accommodate my physiology, an unsettling indication of how thoroughly they'd studied Vrax biology before today. "I don't understand," I said as I carefully arranged my limbs in the seat. "If you possessed the technology to defeat us so easily, why maintain the charade of primitivity? Why risk invasion at all?" Taylor smiled, that same inscrutable human expression. "Humanity has been observing spacefaring civilizations for nearly a century, Scout. Yours is the 4th to attempt conquest." "The 4th? I couldn't mask my shock. There is no record in Imperium archives of—" "Of course not," Taylor interrupted, "because none returned to tell the tale." Cold dread seeped through my neural pathways. "You destroyed them completely?" "Actually, no." Taylor gestured, and a holographic display materialized above the table, showing 3 distinct alien vessels orbiting Earth. We learned from each encounter, adapted their technology, and eventually offered them a choice. I stared at the ships, designs unknown to the Imperium, yet clearly advanced. "What choice?" "The same one we're offering you," Taylor said, leaning forward. "Learn or leave." A human in scientific attire, Dr. Sarah Jackson, according to her identification badge, activated another display showing the remnants of our invasion fleet, now surrounded by Earth vessels. "Your remaining ships are contained," she explained. "They pose no threat, and we have no desire for unnecessary bloodshed, but we cannot allow the Vrax Imperium to remain ignorant of what they've encountered." "And what exactly have we encountered?" I asked, professional curiosity temporarily overriding my fear. Taylor exchanged glances with the others before responding. "Something your kind has forgotten, if you ever knew it at all." He stood, moving to a wall that transformed into a view screen showing Earth from orbit, that blue-white marble that had seemed so ripe for conquest. "Look at our world, Scout. What do you see?" "A Class 4 habitable planet. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, 70% water coverage. Moderate geological activity. Clinical, analytical." Taylor nodded, as expected from a species that values order and control above all else. "But look deeper." The image zoomed in, showing weather systems swirling across continents, the dance of cloud and wind and water. "Your world is dynamic," I acknowledged, unsure what he was driving at. "Chaotic," Taylor corrected. "Unpredictable. Our planet throws hurricanes and earthquakes and volcanic eruptions at us without warning. It freezes us, bakes us, drowns us, and blows us away, and that's just the environment." The display shifted to show predator animals, lions taking down prey, sharks hunting in ocean depths, eagles swooping from the sky. "We evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us," Wright interjected. "Not just the environment, but the other inhabitants. We weren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most naturally armed species, but we survived." "Through technology," I said, beginning to understand. "Like all sentient species." "No," Taylor shook his head. "Through adaptation, through cooperation, through our stubborn refusal to accept limitations. Technology was just a tool and not even our most important one. The display shifted again, showing ancient humans huddled around fires, forming circles against predators in the night. We survived because we united against common threats, a woman in diplomatic attire added. Because we recognized that together we were stronger than any of us alone. The Vraks understand unity, I protested. Our Imperium spans 47 star systems. That's not unity, Wright said with unexpected vehemence. That's conquest, domination, forced compliance. When's the last time the Vraks worked with a species as equals? I had no answer. In Vraks culture, other species were either threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. The concept of equal cooperation was alien. But our technology, I began, is impressive, Taylor acknowledged, but fundamentally stagnant. Your weapons, your ships, your tactics, they've remained essentially unchanged for centuries, haven't they? How could he know that? It was the Imperium's greatest unspoken concern, that we had reached the pinnacle of our development, that we expanded not through innovation but through application of established superiority. Your society values order and hierarchy above all, Taylor continued, seemingly reading my thoughts. It's giving you stability, but at the cost of creativity, of the chaos that drives evolution and innovation. The display shifted to human history, wars, revolutions, social upheavals, punctuated by bursts of artistic and technological advancement. We failed, Taylor said, his voice soft but intense. We fail constantly. We tear down our own societies, challenge our own truths, question our own gods. And in that creative destruction, we find new paths forward. Inefficient, I muttered, but without conviction. Evolutionary, Taylor corrected. Your civilization plateaued centuries ago. Ours reinvents itself every generation. I stared at the display, watching the frantic pace of human development from primitive tools to space travel in an evolutionary eye blink. The implications were staggering. How did you hide this from us? I finally asked. Wright actually laughed. We didn't hide our nature. You just didn't recognize its value. You saw our division as weakness rather than strength, our diversity as inefficiency rather than adaptability, our willingness to risk failure as foolishness rather than courage. And your weapons? I pressed. We showed you what we wanted you to see, Jackson explained. The conventional military technology we use for our internal conflicts, the things we consider disposable. Another display activated showing human technological achievements my reconnaissance had somehow missed: quantum computing arrays, antimatter containment facilities, and weapons platforms that equaled or exceeded Vraks' capabilities. But why? I asked, genuinely baffled. Why maintain primitive technologies at all when you have these advancements? Taylor smiled again, but this time I recognized something in the expression, not mockery but something akin to pity. Because we understand something you've forgotten, he said. True strength isn't about having the most advanced technology, it's about adaptability. About not becoming dependent on any single advantage. He gestured to a soldier standing nearby, who placed a simple metal object on the table, one of the primitive projectile weapons I'd dismissed so contemptuously. This rifle, Taylor said, will function after an electromagnetic pulse disables energy weapons. It will fire underwater, in vacuum, in dust storms that would clog energy relays. It can be repaired with basic tools by anyone with fundamental mechanical knowledge. And most importantly, it does exactly what it needs to do. No more, no less. I stared at the weapon, seeing it not as primitive technology but as something else entirely: practical resilience. Your civilization embraced complexity and specialization, Taylor continued. Ours preserved simplicity alongside advancement. You became dependent on your technology. We ensured we could survive without ours if necessary. The ultimate redundancy, I whispered. Professional admiration, overriding my cultural conditioning. Exactly, Taylor nodded. And that same principle extends beyond technology. Our competing nations, our cultural diversity, our ideological debates, all insurance against total failure. When one approach fails, we have alternatives ready. The realization hit me with physical force. You're not just adapting to your environment, you're adapting to yourself. Now you're beginning to understand, Taylor said, genuine approval in his voice. And that brings us to your choice, Scout Zex the Law. He activated a final display showing the remnants of our invasion fleet. Your surviving commanders await our terms. As the Vrak's expert on humanity, you will deliver them. What terms? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. The Vrak's Imperium will withdraw from Earth's space and acknowledge our sovereignty, Wright stated. In exchange, we won't reverse engineer your remaining ships and use them to reach your homeworld. The threat was delivered so matter-of-factly that it took me a moment to grasp its significance. These humans didn't just want to repel invasion, they could potentially become invaders themselves. And if we refuse? I asked, already knowing the answer. Then we'll be forced to demonstrate that our defensive capabilities were just the beginning, Taylor said quietly. We'd prefer not to do that. Violence should be the last resort of an intelligent species, not the first. Another revolutionary concept by Vrak standards, where military might was the primary currency of interstellar relations. There's a third option, Taylor added unexpectedly. One we personally hope you'll convey to your leaders. Which is? Partnership. The word hung in the air, almost inconceivable in the Vrak's worldview. The universe is vast. Scouts Exthalor, Taylor continued, and likely filled with threats greater than either of our civilizations has yet encountered. Perhaps it's time for a different approach to interspecies relations. I stared at this fragile, elderly human who had just offered an olive branch to the very species that had attempted to subjugate his world hours earlier. In that moment, I understood the true gap between our civilizations, not technological, but philosophical. The Vraks saw the universe as a resource to be consumed, other species as threats or assets. Humans saw it as an ecosystem where diversity created resilience, where cooperation could yield greater benefits than conquest. Your offer is unprecedented, I finally said. So is your situation, Wright pointed out dryly. No species has ever attempted to invade Earth and lived to reconsider. I'll convey your terms, I promised, though I cannot guarantee how the Imperium will respond. We understand, Taylor nodded. Change is difficult for any civilization, but remember what you've witnessed here today, Scout. Not just our military capability, but the thinking behind it. As human guards escorted me back to a transport that would return me to my people, Colonel Wright fell into step beside me. One question before you go, he said. What will you tell them about us? About what makes humans different? I considered the question carefully, searching for the words that might help my species understand what they'd encountered and perhaps prevent our extinction. I will tell them that the Vraks conquered stars by eliminating chaos, I finally replied, but humans mastered chaos itself. I will tell them that what we perceived as primitive was actually evolutionary brilliance, that their apparent weakness, their division, their diversity, their constant reinvention is the source of a strength we cannot hope to match through conventional means. Wright nodded, satisfied with my answer. And I will tell them, I continued, that while the Vraks sought to become the most powerful species in the galaxy, humans recognized a more fundamental truth, that no species can remain on top forever unless they learn to lift others up alongside them. As our transport lifted off from Earth's surface, I watched the blue-white world recede beneath us. The planet that had seemed so ripe for conquest now appeared in a different light, not as a resource to be exploited, but as a crucible that had forged something remarkable. The Vraks had spent millennia perfecting order and hierarchy, creating a civilization of breathtaking stability and technological achievement. But in doing so, we had engineered out the very chaos that drives evolution. Humans had embraced that chaos, channeled it, learned from it. They had preserved their connection to their primal origins even as they reached for the stars. And in that contradiction, that willingness to be both primitive and advanced simultaneously, lay a power the Vrak's Imperium could never have anticipated. A power we would now have to reckon with, one way or another.